Have you ever met someone who genuinely prefers being alone? Not because they're sad or lonely, but because they actually enjoy their own company more than being around others. They turn down plans without guilt. They spend weekends by themselves and call it perfect. People think something's wrong with them, that they're antisocial, depressed, or running from something. But here's the truth. People who love being alone aren't broken. They've just discovered something most people are terrified to face: that you can be completely content without needing anyone else. They've learned to enjoy their own company. Most people can't stand being alone because they don't like who they are when no one's watching. But people who love solitude have made peace with themselves. They're not running from their thoughts. They're not afraid of silence. They've done the work to become someone they actually want to spend time with. And once you reach that point, other people become optional, not necessary. They're not lonely. They're fulfilled. And that level of self-sufficiency is something most people never achieve. Being around people drains their energy, not fills it. For some people, socializing isn't energizing. It's exhausting. Every conversation requires effort. Every interaction demands performance. Even hanging out with friends they love feels like work, not because they don't care, but because their brain processes social situations differently. They're introverts at the core, and being alone isn't isolation. It's restoration. It's where they recharge. It's where they feel most like themselves. And after years of forcing themselves to be social, they've finally given themselves permission to stop. They don't need external validation to feel whole. Most people seek validation through relationships, friendships, and social approval. But people who love being alone have built their self-worth internally. They don't need someone to tell them they're valuable. They don't need constant reassurance that they matter. They know who they are without an audience, and that confidence makes them untouchable. They're not seeking attention because they don't need it. They're not chasing connection because they're already complete. And in a world obsessed with being seen, their self-assurance is rare. They've been disappointed by people too many times. Let's be honest. Some people love being alone because people have let them down repeatedly. Betrayals, broken promises, conditional love. They got tired of investing in relationships that didn't reciprocate, so they chose themselves, not out of bitterness but out of self-preservation. They realized that the only person who will never abandon them is themselves. And once they made peace with that, solitude stopped feeling like loneliness. It started feeling like freedom. They have rich inner worlds that don't require others. People who love being alone are rarely bored. They read, they think, they create. They explore ideas, hobbies, and passions that don't need an audience. Their mind is a universe they're constantly discovering. While others need external stimulation, conversation, entertainment, noise, they find everything they need within themselves. They don't need someone else to make life interesting. They're interesting on their own. And that self-contained richness makes solitude feel like a gift, not a punishment. They value peace over performance. Being around people requires a level of performance. You smile when you don't feel like it. You engage in small talk you don't care about. You manage other people's emotions, expectations, and energy. And for people who love being alone, that performance is exhausting. Solitude is where they can drop the act, where they don't have to be funny, interesting, or accommodating. They can just exist, messy, quiet, unfiltered. And that freedom is worth more than any social gathering could ever offer. They're not lonely, they're selectively social. Here's what people don't understand. Loving solitude doesn't mean hating people. It means being selective about who gets access to your energy. These people have friends, they have connections, but they're intentional about them. They'd rather have one deep conversation than 10 shallow ones. They'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who don't truly know them. They're not isolating themselves. They're protecting their peace. And they've learned that quality matters more than quantity in every area of life. Here's the thing people need to accept. Not everyone is lonely when they're alone. Some people are finally at peace, and there's nothing wrong with that. Society pressures everyone to be constantly connected, constantly social, constantly available. But the people who love being alone have rejected that narrative. They've chosen themselves. And instead of seeing that as sad, maybe we should see it for what it really is: strength. self-awareness, and the courage to be content without needing the world's approval. If you want to understand the psychology behind people who live life on their own terms, subscribe now. Because on this channel, we're celebrating the ones who chose peace over popularity,